morning. Welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and Calvin Butenhoff coming to you live from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, call or text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. You want to do it short, it's 855-75-CIVIC. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Coming up on the show today, we're going to talk about the Wisconsin Supreme Court race.
Yeah, we're in it.
We're in it, and it's going to be here before you know it.
Yes.
This is going to happen really, really quickly, April 1st. Yes, we're going back to the polls. It's not a lot of time to get to know these two candidates.
Well, there are, two. I'm sorry.
Just two.
I was thinking DPI for my apologies.
Different thing, yep.
Yep, different thing, but yes. Yep.
So we're going to kick that around a little bit. Talk about Brad Schimmel, who is running as a Republican for the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And he has opinions about what should happen to the January 6th attackers. We'll kick that around. We're also going to talk about bird flu. We have had the first death from bird flu in Louisiana. Granted, this was a person over 65 who apparently had underlying health conditions. But this is something we're going to keep an eye on. Yeah. And also, at the same time, this person who passed away from bird flu apparently had contact with a backyard flock. At the same time, there's an alderman in Milwaukee who wants to make it easier for people to get chickens. I am not anti-chicken, but I think this might be the wrong time to do this. So we'll kick that around a little bit later on. Next hour, Darin Von Rudin will be back. He is the president of the Wisconsin Farmers Union. We're going to find out exactly what it is the Farmers Union does, first and foremost. And then we're going to talk about tariffs and Trump's immigration plan for mass deportations, and also the languishing farm bill and how that is going to affect all of us, essentially, when we are going to the grocery store.
Yes, we've talked to Hans Breitenmoser about this. We've talked to Darin in the past about this. There are repercussions to no farm bill, and it's not just like, oh, it's going to be like a little bit extra for the cereal. These are huge repercussions.
These are big things. 11:33. This should be very interesting. How young is too young to get a tattoo?
Well, Jane, I have opinions.
How old were you when you got your first one?
We'll talk about it later.
Oh, he's teasing.
Teasing, baby.
Ooh, we're going to have to wait.
Boom, boom, boom.
And we will wrap it up as we always do with This Shouldn't Be a Thing. Today it's the Baby Don't Drive My Car edition. Stick around for that. Did want to start off, though. These California wildfires have really exploded.
Yes.
Governor Gavin Newsom of California declared a state of emergency for the Pacific Palisades area after a massive wildfire erupted Tuesday. It is already 3,000 acres not under control and forcing tens of thousands of people to evacuate. It first was reported yesterday morning and quickly grew to engulf hundreds of acres. It's those Santa Ana winds causing lots and lots of problems. Gavin Newsom says this is a highly dangerous windstorm creating extreme fire risk. We are not out of the woods. President Biden shared a statement on the fire yesterday. He is being updated on the blaze, and the president says he's in touch with state and local officials offering federal assistance to help with the aftermath of these terrible fires. It's going to be interesting to see what happens after January 20th.
Yeah, because we all should remember how then President Trump, now President-elect Trump, his advice for wildfires was you got to sweep the forests.
You rake them.
Rake them. That's right. I'm sorry.
You got to rake the forests.
A better journalist than that. Rake the forest. Rake the forests.
Yeah. And as far as aid is concerned,
yep,
I guess it's going to be Gavin Newsom's turn to grovel.
Yeah,
which hasn't been a problem for the CEOs of most of our big companies. They're happy to
which are located in California.
They're good grovelers.
And maybe those CEOs who have given money to Trump will, on behalf of Gavin Newsom, say, "Hey, we're here too.
Our companies are here."
Yep. They're not in the area, but they're still in California, and you never know.
It will be interesting to see what happens, but our thoughts with everybody in these affected areas. If you see any of the visions, the images online, I can't imagine how long do you wait? How long do you wait? There's a video on Twitter earlier this morning of two guys in a house, and they waited until the last minute, and they walk out, and the trees are burning, and everything is burning. It's like, dude, we tried to save it.
Yep.
There's nothing else we can do.
You got to just at one point also say, our house is going to burn down.
Our lives are more important.
We have to be prepared for that. Hopefully, they're one of those individuals who's still able to get fire insurance.
That's that's a whole nother issue.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother issue. But we will keep you abreast on what is happening with these wildfires out in California. Wanted to start off, though, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. No surprise. Senate Republicans push forward voter ID constitutional amendment proposal. They want to get that on before voters on April 1st, on the April ballot.
Yeah.
Worried about potential future actions that could weaken current laws. Essentially, they're afraid that another Democrat will get elected to the Wisconsin Supreme Court, and they could reverse what is already in effect. Wisconsin implemented voter ID laws fully for the first time in 2016, requiring voters to show a valid photo ID when casting ballots. Republican lawmakers say they want to add it to the state constitution, so essentially it can't get repealed.
Unless we repeal it.
With the measure added to the Constitution, it would then take another constitutional amendment in order to remove it. I think this will pass handily.
Absolutely. I think so.
I really do.
I think a lot of Democrats will also I think a lot of Democrats will vote for this just because the way they word it, or they don't know, and that's not an insult to people. It's just this past year, those amendments that were they were like, oh, I read it, and it just seemed like common sense.
Exactly.
Of course you have an ID when you vote, but but a lot of people do not understand the underlying racism, ageism, intolerance that goes into these things. And also, let's also go back to the original point of order here. This was not necessary in the first place. There is no and this is pre-Donald Trump, pre-Stop the Steal, pre-stolen election mumbo jumbo back in the teens when they were like, we got to get voter ID. Why? Because elections need to be secured. But they are. We have evidence. We have all the evidence that says that the amount of voter fraud in Wisconsin is so minuscule.
Yes.
It does not necessitate a new law and all of this hullabaloo. We don't need it.
But that's not their point. They don't care. They don't care. They don't care that there's no voter fraud. It works in their favor to feed the suspicion.
Yes.
To feed the suspicion that all of these people who should not be voting are actually voting, even though, as you said, Greg, there is no evidence of that. Go back to 2020 and the almost $2 million we paid Michael Gableman to go attend symposiums with the MyPillow guy who had absolute concrete proof, Greg Bach.
It's coming out next week.
Of voter fraud.
He's bringing it out next week.
Did he? What happened to Mike Lindell?
He went broke.
I know, but he didn't get a grace job in the next Trump administration?
I don't know.
What a slap.
I think, honestly, his whole thing was he was going to be a crusader for this movement because he had all this money.
Not anymore.
We'll see where he ends up now. Because
he's been awfully quiet.
Oh, yeah.
He's been really, really, really quiet since the election. But yes, I firmly believe that this is going to pass pretty handily. Even though, as you said, Greg, there is no evidence of widespread voter fraud in Wisconsin or anywhere in the country.
No.
And Senator Kelda Roys of Madison said she's disappointed the GOP is rushing to impose their policy choices on the state of Wisconsin in perpetuity instead of acting on other things. They have been on vacation for over 300 days.
Yeah.
And they come back for the first time on Monday. What's their priority? Is it women's health?
No. God, they don't care about you.
Is it childcare?
Nope.
Is it public school funding?
Nope.
Is it getting poisonous PFAS out of our water?
Absolutely not.
No. This is their number one concern.
Well, this is our Gulf of America, essentially. There's a lot of great work that needs to be done. There's a lot of big things that need to be taken care of. And they're going in and they're looking at all the stuff that doesn't need to be even addressed. And they say, we're going to put a constitutional amendment that requires voter ID because we care about elections. quit puffing your chests. It's not an important issue. Just because you say it doesn't mean it is. Robin Voss, you wear a thin skin nothing.
Robin Voss also said, by the way, because Governor Evers has suggested that we make some changes so that Wisconsinites can be the ones to get referenda on state ballots.
Yeah.
And Robin Voss says that that's dead on arrival. Not going to happen because, again, he knows better than all of us.
He said, we spoke about it earlier this week, he believes in a representative democracy as long as he is representing.
Yes, he's the only representative.
The moment he isn't representing or his party isn't in power, then there's a problem. There will be a problem. We need to get those Democrats out. We need the people need to rise up and form their own. I don't know, but it's Robin Voss is our great contrarian. Anything you say, he will say, no, that's not what we need to do. And he has no real evidence to back it up. He never does. He just if it doesn't please him, or it threatens his power, he's not for it.
Not going to happen.
Yeah, and this whole when he says things like it's dead on arrival. Oh, so we're gonna be exactly how we were last year and the year before that. There will be no compromise. There will be no bipartisanship. It'll just be what the Popcorn King wants.
Yep.
The Popcorn King will get.
Unfortunately, I think you're right.
Disgusting.
Yeah. Again, I'm just disappointed that this is the number one priority for them. Like there are no other issues that are important to Wisconsinites. I would love to know what you would like to see them take up.
Yeah.
And address.
Yes.
Now that this is done, because again, this is going to be on the April ballot. I firmly believe that it will pass.
I do too.
I don't think it's going to be an issue. But
I don't like that it's going to.
No, but I think it will. What would you like to see our legislature, I don't know, actually do?
Accomplish?
855-752-4842. We will take your calls and your texts on the other side. Stay close. You are listening to Matenaer On Air on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Much more than this, I did it my way. Yes, there were times I'm sure you knew.
Good morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Caliente on the board, coming to you from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us. Call or text at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Right before the break, we were talking about Wisconsin Republicans. Their number one thing, now that they're back from their 10-month vacation, their number one thing is enshrining Wisconsin's existing voter ID law into the state constitution. We would like to know what you would like to see them, I don't know, concentrate some time on, considering there's no evidence of widespread voter fraud, never has been.
Nope.
Where should they be spending some brain cells? Dave from New Berlin says, I'm okay with voter ID, but the reason behind it is to have fewer people vote. Yes.
Well,
absolutely, Dave.
Then I guess I question why you would be okay with it then.
I'm sorry, but it's going to happen.
No, I'm not. That's not.
I know.
My point is that like voter ID is very, very. It's based in all sorts of prejudices, prejudices. Whether you're a college student, whether you are a person of color, whether you are an older person,
whether you're a person with disabilities.
Exactly. This hampers a lot of individuals. So to me, I don't think anyone should be okay with this. Period. So I don't understand. And it's true. It will lower the amounts of votes, and that is a bad thing.
And that's the goal.
So
I also believe that this is one way to ensure that Republicans get a good turnout for the Supreme Court election, because this constitutional amendment will be on the same ballot on April 1st. So that way they ensure that their base will get out and vote. If they were not necessarily concerned about the Supreme Court race, this will get them out.
You know, even though we're saying that we think it's going to go through, we have to approach it, though, like we did last year with Janet Protasiewicz. We have to keep talking about it. We have to keep informing, because her election last year wasn't a nail biter. It wasn't by the seat of anyone's pants. This was an overarching victory. This was a landslide.
It was a landslide.
11 points, I believe, she won by. I want to hope that Wisconsin won't do it. And if we keep talking about it, maybe people will have conversations about it, and it will push more people to the polls for a very quiet election. Like what will be, it's not a big sexy election. There's a couple things on there.
Right.
So yeah, I just keep talking to your friends. Keep talking. We don't need voter ID enshrined in our Constitution. It's not necessary.
It really isn't necessary. Dave also says he would like to see more state park funding and more conservation officers. Wisconsin, I think we're celebrating the anniversary of our state parks.
I would love to see that. That's probably also dead on arrival, because for some reason it bothers Robin Voss.
Well, if they were to talk about mining our state parks, I'm sure that would get some attention.
We'll give every single ranger a pickaxe. They can go old school.
855-752-4842 if you would like to join us. Jack from Merrimack is on the line. Good morning, Jack. Thank you for joining us. What did you want to say?
Good morning, and thanks for taking my call. The first priority of our wonderful legislature really should be to release the already allocated funding for PFAS cleanups and reading and in the public schools. And then after that, there are definitely three top priorities. We had well over 100 school districts that just to open their doors this last fall had to float referenda. That's got to stop.
Yep.
The next priority should probably be keeping hospitals in rural areas open.
Yep.
And I don't think it'll take a huge amount of funding, maybe a few million, considering we have about a $4.5 billion surplus. They ought to be able to do that. And the third thing should be keeping childcare open so that, for example, our workforce, we don't have people who are stuck between, do I get a job that barely will pay for or not even pay for childcare and work, or do I and just have the kids staying at home and not work?
Yeah, that's
those three things have got to be dealt with. And our arrogant Republicans are just incredible. This is more of our way or the highway. And these guys have got to be, they've got to be put on furlough. They have to end up getting real jobs, and we got to vote them out of office. We started this last election. We got to continue working on that in the next one.
Appreciate it, Jack. Thank you so very much. You make great points, and I think a lot of folks would agree with you as far as what we would like to see get done. As a matter of fact, if this irritates you, you can always call your elected representative and let them know.
Where do they go to find that information?
It's so easy, Greg. It's all in one place. myvote.wi.gov.
Yes.
myvote.wi.gov. All you have to do is type in your address, and that will bring up every single elected official who represents you.
From the president on down to your city councilor.
Exactly. Everybody, it's got all their contact information, including their phone numbers.
Be polite.
Be polite.
Be
We
nice.
always encourage you to be polite. And give them a call.
Yes.
And tell them where you would like to see them focus some attention, because there are other issues in Wisconsin bigger than photo ID.
While Robin Voss is making photo ID on the Constitution a thing, he is focusing his energy and attention on that. A family somewhere in northern Wisconsin is going to Costco to buy
Bottled water.
4 or 5 giant packs of bottled water because they can't drink the water coming out of their tap. That's the difference between importance in Wisconsin. That's what Robin Voss thinks is important, is photo ID at the booth. Meanwhile, a family's just trying to get clean drinking water, which we could be fixing right now. But Robin Voss will not allow that to happen. He will not allow his little cronies to release $125 million to help Wisconsinites get clean drinking water.
No, the priority is protecting their own jobs.
Yep.
The priority is protecting themselves. We're way, way, way down on that list.
Release the money, then go tell people you did it. They'll be like, "Hey, that's great.
We'd like to like
I'll
you.
vote for that guy."
Right? We would love to. Yes, that would be wonderful. Anyway, give them a call. myvote.wi.gov. News is coming up next. When we return, we're going to talk about the Wisconsin Supreme Court race coming up April 1st. Stay close. You're listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
And not the words of one who kneels. The record shows I took the blows and did it my way.
Good morning. Welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and Sweet Calby on the board, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, call or text. The number is the same. It's 855-752-4842. You can leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and the platform that Jabba the Musk continues to actively ruin. Coming up after the 11 o'clock news, Darin Von Rudin will be here with the Wisconsin Farmers Union, and we're going to find out, first and foremost, what it is the Wisconsin Farmers Union does.
Yes.
And then we're going to talk about grocery prices. And that was something that we heard a lot about before the election, price of eggs.
It's the price of eggs, Jane.
Price of eggs are too high. Donald Trump said he would bring them down right away by the time he came. Bingo.
And what did you tell Time Magazine?
Yeah, once they're up, once prices are up, they're really hard to bring down.
So, the only thing I have in my life that's good right now is the fact that Calvin played the theme song to Night Court, so I'm happy.
We do have a Wisconsin Supreme Court race. Yes, we're going back to the polls on April 1st, and there will be two candidates on the ballots for the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. We have Susan McDonald and Brad Schimmel on the right, who will be running for the spot to replace the justice who is retiring after 30 years on the bench.
Susan Crawford.
Susan Crawford, I'm sorry. Thank you for correcting me. Brad Schimmel, former Wisconsin Attorney General, has complained that the January 6th attackers, or as he said, defendants, never got a fair shot in court and accused Democrats of abusing the court system for political gain. Brad Schimmel says that Democrats are guilty of lawfare, political warfare via the courts.
Okay, he just made that word up, right?
No, this has been kicked around on the Republican side for quite a while.
Then that word means nothing to me. They make up those words all the time.
Quote, another piece of the lawfare manipulation is that they utilize jurisdictions that are overwhelmingly to the left in terms of voters, which means the jurors that you're going to draw to hear these cases. In Trump's New York hush money trial, for example, Schimmel said there's no way any jury was going to rule anything other than he's guilty, whatever charge you give them. I have never been a defendant so far in court, but it's my understanding that the trial is held where the crime is committed. Is that not accurate?
Usually somewhere in the vicinity. They can file for a change of venue, but the change of venue is usually not like if I commit a crime in Milwaukee, I can't be like, I want my court case to be in Arizona
or Idaho
or a place where, they like me. It's generally in the vicinity of where you crimed.
Where you crimed.
Or let me say, where you allegedly crimed.
Yes.
Yes. And so I don't know where Mr. Schimmel wants these J6 patriots, hostages, traitors to be like, what they want them to be tried in northern Washington state. What does he want?
Probably Florida.
Yeah.
In front of Judge Eileen Cannon. That would be ideal.
Well, we're going to talk about her as well as some other things with Jim Santel on Friday.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
It's Brad Schimmel, former Republican Governor Scott Walker's attorney general, was involved at one point, this is out of the Wisconsin Examiner, by the way, in a Christian conservative coalition's plan to end federally protected abortion rights. So as we're going to the polls on April 1st to determine the ideological slant of the court, keep this in mind. Brad Schimmel is not for protecting women's right to abortion.
I mean, not to sound like a big old party downer, but the fact that he's a member of the GOP, I already assumed that he had no interest in protecting the rights of women and their bodily autonomy.
Right.
Because that's just not their jam. So I hope this is something we should be talking about on a regular basis, is the fact that he worked so hard as a judge to snuff out human rights for people, mainly women here in this country. But yeah, we need the same groundswell we had last year.
Yes. surrounding Janet Protasewicz.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, we're going to hopefully have Susan Crawford on the show to talk about this stuff. And of course, we will invite whomever, but we need to talk about, we want to make sure our court stays fair. And I know a lot of people will say, well, that's just another liberal. It's like, yeah, but the liberal wants to make sure everyone has their rights intact. That seems fair.
As opposed to taking them away.
That just seems fair to me. And like, he doesn't whip around words like, what was that, lawfare?
Lawfare.
That's something a 6-year-old says. I'm sorry. That's just not, I don't want to elect a person like that.
Schimmel also seems to believe that the attackers on January 6th they weren't armed. Nobody was armed. It was all peaceful, and these were all patriots who love their country. I'm putting words in his mouth, but essentially it's like, I don't understand what the problem was. Well, you know what, Brad Schimmel, they were armed.
Mm-hmm.
CNN reporter Daniel Dale fact-checking some of these claims. Daniel Dale says, quote, in addition to knives, tasers, batons, axes, chemical sprays, and baseball bats, rioters carried guns during the Capitol riot. We've known this for years now. We know it because it's been proven in court over and over again. More than 1,500 defendants have been charged with federal crimes related to the attack, including hundreds with misdemeanor offenses for entering the Capitol illegally. More than 100,000 rioters already sentenced. More than 700 getting at least some time in prison. Among these fine patriots, rioter Mark Mazza brought 2 loaded handguns onto Capitol grounds, pled guilty, got 5 years. Guy Reffitt, convicted for bringing a handgun to the Capitol, more than 7 years. Christopher Alberts, also with a pistol on Capitol grounds, found guilty, got 7 years. Mario Maris also had a gun that day, guilty. Roger Preacher, a gun, guilty. Jairus Thomas Barger had a gun, guilty. A man named John Benuelos, charged for allegedly twice firing a pistol in the air. So using a gun on Capitol grounds during the riot, he has pleaded not guilty. Daniel Dale, again from CNN, saying, we will likely never get a complete inventory of the guns carried by rioters that day. Most of them were able to leave before they got tracked down and arrested. And let's not forget as well that it was either the Proud Boys or the 3%ers who had stockpiles of weapons in Virginia.
Probably say both of them probably did.
Because you weren't supposed to have weapons in Washington, D.C.
And these are the absolute 100% traitors to this country that the incoming president refers to as patriots and or hostages and would like to pardon. They cause injury, they cause death, they cause destruction, they cause mayhem, they try to uproot our political system, they try to uproot our free elections, and the man who wants to sit on a Wisconsin Supreme Court doesn't actually, it's not even the fact that he has a hard opinion, he just doesn't know, he doesn't think. I don't think they had weapons.
Well, and he just thinks that they got treated unfairly.
Yeah, this is what Brad Schimmel, right? Brad, I want to say Brian, but Brad Schimmel.
We can call him Brian.
I get mixed up with Brian, GOP guy.
Style.
No, that's the congressman.
Hagedorn.
Wrong.
Oh.
It's fine. Pete.
Okay.
No, this is the guy that wants to sit on a Wisconsin Supreme Court who thinks that he has sympathy for them. He has sympathy for them. We live in a country where people get screwed over by quote unquote justice all the time. People who are working hard to protect themselves or whatever they're doing to make sure. I'm thinking a lot of stand your ground laws. And this guy thinks the January 6th traitors should get a fair shot.
Now, he's not actually suggesting, at least not that I have seen, that they get other trials.
Yeah.
But he's saying it's completely unfair that they were tried in New York and D.C. because the juries are all liberal and you can't possibly get a fair trial. But again, you stand trial close to where you crimed.
Yep.
It's just the way it works.
Yeah. Well, I guess the question I would ask Mr. Schimmel is, what would you say if the incoming president did pardon all of them? Would you have a problem with that? Because a person who's worth their salt, a person of the law, whether it be judge, lawyer, or just a big fan of the law, would be like, this is wrong. Wouldn't matter who you voted for. you would think this is wrong. But I have a feeling that Mr. Schimmel, Judge Schimmel, my apologies, Judge Schimmel, would probably say, well, it wasn't a great trial, so it's probably better off this way. If they find more evidence, maybe something could happen. But I guess guns and knives and tasers, that's not good enough.
Nothing. That's nothing. That's nothing.
Not to mention the equipment they stole from Capitol Police that day to break windows, beat cops. You know, they get a fair shake.
It's astonishing to me that anyone who has seen any of the footage from January 6th can walk away from that and say, yeah, that was fine.
Yeah.
These are people who love their country. It was like a regular tourist day. Just everybody was standing behind the rope lines,
Yeah.
Greg. It was all fine. We didn't have the shaman shirtless behind the podium rifling through Nancy Pelosi's things. No. That was all. They loved their country.
They're just interested in service and you know, they wanted to see like, oh man, I'm gonna take some of her stationery. You know, it's disgusting.
It is disgusting. And the efforts to whitewash it will continue.
Oh, yeah.
To turn this around into something completely the opposite of what it was.
From the very people who were sitting in those rooms that day.
Cowering,
as you would. I would have been.
Me
I would have
too.
been afraid. I would have been on the phone with my wife telling her I loved her and I didn't know if I was coming home. I understand that. It's fine to be afraid. But then to just stand up immediately and within 48 hours, travel to Florida and kiss the ring of the guy who set this all off, allegedly, talking to you, Kevin McCarthy, that is reprehensible, because then and we talked about this on Monday, then those officers who were injured and died are being treated, they're dying in vain. They were protecting them. They were protecting those people.
Yes, what an insult to their families. When Brian Schimmel was running for Wisconsin Attorney General, he made government transparency a major talking point. However, according to the Wisconsin Examiner, then he tried to hide records of his trip to a conference hosted by the Alliance Defending Freedom. Surprise, surprise, Southern Poverty Law Center has labeled that group an anti-gay hate group. Schimmel was there, according to the New York Times, presenting his legal strategy to end Roe. He proposed his idea for an abortion ban that set a limit earlier than 20 weeks to undercut Roe more openly. Schimmel says, I'm going to follow the law and the Constitution. That's something we're missing right now.
I don't think the Constitution says anything about abortion. Last time I checked.
Before any male lawmakers makes any decision about Roe versus Wade, I want to know if they can define what an ectopic pregnancy is. Just that one thing. Explain to me what an ectopic pregnancy is, and then we can discuss further.
Okay.
But if you can't tell me what that is, you got no say about it, dude. I'm sorry. Like basic knowledge. It's basic knowledge.
You'll get no argument from me on this one.
That's a wise move there. Move, Greg Bach.
By the way, it was Brian Schimming I was thinking of. He's the GOP Wisconsin State.
Oh yeah.
You know, he's a gem too.
So many jewels.
Yeah.
In our state legislature. All right, when we return, bird flu and backyard chickens. This might not be the best time. I'm just saying. We'll kick that around next. You're listening to Matenaer On Air. Stay with us on the vast statewide, countrywide, yes, we are global, on the Civic Media app. Civic Media Radio Network. We'll be right back.
Chicken. Y'all ready? I say y'all ready. Okay, here we go. You raise the left arm up.
Good morning. Welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and the Board Lord coming to you from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, call or text. The number is the same. It's 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Also, you can listen via the Civic Media app.
Yes.
You can call and text directly from the Civic Media app, which is pretty handy. So if you don't have it yet, go to wherever you get your apps. Look for Civic, C-I-V-I-C, Civic Media. It's a nice big CM logo. Civic Media, download the app, and that makes it possible for you to call and text directly to any station all across the state.
Yes.
We've got 20 stations now.
And you can take that app and listen to us anywhere in the world.
Isn't that cool?
Yes, it is.
We got an email from someone who was in New Zealand listening to us on the app, so we know we're global.
We are global for sure. There's no doubt now.
Also, just a suggestion, if you would like to subscribe to the Civic Media newsletter,
Yes.
I highly encourage you to do that. We do have reporters all over the state now, and they are working really hard to curate special stories for where you live.
Yes.
So if you listen to WISS in Oshkosh, WLAK in Amory, no matter where you are, go to civicmedia.us, go to our website, and sign up to subscribe to the newsletter. It's absolutely free.
Yes.
And we've done quite a bit of tweaking with our websites, too, over the last couple of weeks.
Yes.
Lots of information there.
What's great is that you can go there and you can download individual episodes of the shows as a file you can listen to on your player. If you don't want to download as a podcast, it's all this grace. It's always being reworked
Updated.
and tweaked and yeah, to be the best user experience for the listener and the viewer who watches the live stream. I wonder if I would get the live stream on there.
Ooh.
No.
Want to talk about chickens?
That was a hard right turn.
We have had the first human death from avian flu.
Yeah.
We've been hearing about bird flu for a while. And this is from WPR, Hope Kirwan. First human death from avian flu sparks calls for stricter hygiene, more testing. Animal and human health experts say backyard flock owners need to be on guard against bird flu, which is widely found in wild birds. My concern, and I have nothing against backyard chickens. I certainly understand why people want to keep chickens. We've had a listener who talked about her favorite pet, her favorite chicken.
Yes.
She had a number of chickens, and she had a favorite
A
chicken.
lot of chickens. I think it was like 60 chickens.
She had a lot of chickens.
Yeah.
But now, Milwaukee Alderman Peter Burgelis, who represents Milwaukee's Southwest Side, has sponsored a waiver to amend Milwaukee's chicken keeping code. It's about this $35 permit fee application that people had to fill out and then pay this $35 in order to be allowed to have chickens. It does not expire, but Alderman Burgelis said that he was hearing from some constituents that $35 is $35. And for some folks, that's just too much. So he wanted to suspend that. He said the city shouldn't stand in the way of residents accessing healthy food. I have no problems with that. I just don't know if now is the right time to encourage more people to get backyard flocks when we have instances of bird flu around the
Well,
country.
the question I would have is anyone listening in Milwaukee or a place that allows chickens in a city type of area, not out in the country, but more of a urban setting? Do they have to have, like with a dog, do they have to have certain vaccination shots and whatnot? And you have to prove to the city that I have a chicken, the chicken is healthy, and I would like a permit. I don't know. I mean, I get 35 is 35, but you can also find other ways you can make it maybe a yearly, like break into 4 payments or whatever. But because I've never owned a chicken. I've consumed many eggs, but I've never owned a chicken.
Right.
I'm wondering, do you have to show certain paperwork like I would when I take Maybell in to get her license? I have to show paperwork saying
she's been vaccinated.
She's been vaccinated. She's up to, like, all the stuff is here. There you go. And they take my money and they give me a little thing to put on her neck and we're good. Do you have to do the same thing as a chicken owner in Milwaukee or another urban space that allows this?
855-752-4842. If you are an urban chicken owner, we would love to hear from you. Yes, I don't know what the requirements are. And again, I understand people want to have their own chickens. You can, have eggs, and there are a lot of food deserts
Yeah.
around Milwaukee where it's hard to access fresh food. So I certainly understand this, but again, it's this concern with the bird flu now that we're seeing around the country, and I'm in the process of trying to book someone talking about people feeding their pets raw food and their cats in particular.
Ugh.
That also has led to some instances of some not desirable outcomes.
Yeah.
But again, be careful with your chickens.
Yeah, I mean, be careful with all your. I mean, honestly, like now you're saying that, be careful with all your pets. I mean, we're very strict with that. Maybelle gets, when it comes to human food, cheese or some kind of meat. Very little, very tiny bits.
Do you feed her to her raw?
No, never. And I think the only thing we give her consistently is cheese, and it's not all the time. But her food is kibble or a wet food for dogs.
Yeah.
I would never ever just throw meat in her bowl and be like, "Have at it, kiddo."
That's become a big thing among some. I'm sure it's the same raw milk people who want to be feeding their pets, raw food. But as I said, we're in the process of booking someone to talk about that and the advantages or disadvantages of feeding your pets raw food. Anyway, be careful with those chickens.
Yeah,
just saying.
I mean, hopefully we can find out more about this as far as the requirements. But yeah, if there are no requirements, then no, thank you.
We have news coming up next when we return. Darin Von Rudin will be here from the Wisconsin Farmers Union, going to talk about the price of eggs, among many other things. Stay with us. You're listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
Do the fucking chicken now. 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 Oh, oh. Do the fucking chicken now. Oh, oh. Do the fucking chicken now.
Good morning, Darin. Can you hear me all right?
Good morning. I can hear you.
All right. You sound good. We come back from break in about 4 minutes.
Okay, sounds good.
Good morning. Welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and Calvin Butenoff coming to you live from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us. You can call, you can text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Coming up later on this hour after the 11:30 news, how young is too young to get a tattoo? This is related to a story out of Arizona that's causing some controversy. How young is too young to get a tattoo? That will come your way after the 11:30 news. We will wrap up the show as we always do with This Shouldn't Be a Thing. Today it's the Baby Don't Drive My Car edition. Stick around for that. Right now, though, he is the president of the Wisconsin Farmers Union. Darin Von Rudin is here. Good morning, Darin. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing well, Jane.
Good to have you back. Thank you so much for joining us. Darin, we've had you on a couple of times, and I don't know that we've ever started with what is it that the Wisconsin Farmers Union does? Let's start there.
Sure. So we're a general farm organization. So we do a lot of educational work to our members from all the way starting at age 7 all the way up to as old as I am and older. So our youth group, we do have a camp and teach the cooperative principles there. And then for older adults, certainly looking at anything to do with farming. And then also we do quite a bit of lobbying too here in the state of Wisconsin and in DC on agricultural issues.
And what is your personal background, Darin?
I am an organic dairy farmer.
Nice. When I was looking at the Wisconsin Farmers Union website, it almost looks like a congressional map where it's busted into 8 different districts, and everyone has their representative. And Darin, you are the president, Mr. President. Congratulations on your reelection. And yes, Jane said, I was looking through, I'm like, I don't think we've ever asked Darin what you guys do exactly. And I'm glad you did, because I think that's very important. We love talking to farmers here, and we love knowing that, especially in the day of 2024 with all these devices and all these things going on, you're still teaching the youth how to farm and getting them interested in keeping those traditions alive on those sometimes 100-year-old family properties.
Yeah, and or 150-year-old properties.
Yeah, exactly.
We have some members that are sixth, seventh generation farmers already, and yeah.
I would imagine that in the youth groups that you have now, things have changed, as Greg kind of implied. Things have changed so much. There's so much more technology involved in farming than there ever used to be.
Yeah, it certainly is. Just from my generation to my son now, and the amount of stuff that he does on the computer and looking at the equipment that's out there. If you can afford it, which not everybody can afford it, you don't have to drive tractors once in a while. So you got to do is turn them around on that end of the fields, and getting to that ease of operating things is, I never thought it'd happen in my lifetime, but it certainly is here already. But yeah, our kids that are 6, 7, 8 years old right now are probably going to certainly see a different type of technology than what's on the farms today too.
Is that something that your son wants to do? Does he want to continue the tradition?
Yep. He's continuing with the 50 cow dairy operation, and foresees that staying there. Certainly, equipment updates need to happen because eventually some of that equipment isn't replaceable, or there's not parts available for it. So you got to continue that process as the generations move on.
Well, and I think too, Darin, I think there is a misconception that all farms now are big corporate factory farms, and granted, the number of small independent farms has been shrinking, and that's been shrinking for the last 20 years. But there are still independent farmers in Wisconsin.
Oh yeah, definitely. Looking at the dairy industry, which is the agriculture's biggest partner in the state, we're down under 6,000 dairy farms today versus back in the 80s we had 40,000 dairy farms.
Jeez.
Wow.
We've seen continuous drop there, and it's not our members' viewpoints isn't going in the right direction. We need to see diversity within our production system, and certainly the direction that we're heading with fewer and fewer owners of the agricultural farms, whether it's dairy or crops or livestock. It's getting to be too concentrated, and that really draws some. Well, we need to draw more attention to that issue, because that having our food systems coming from many owners versus one or two is critical to make sure that we have a strong government here.
Yeah, monopolies tend to only be good for the monopolies.
Yep.
Well, where are things now? So what are you hearing from folks? We're going to be going into a second Trump administration. Donald Trump, of course, famously promised on the campaign trail mass deportations on day one and 25% or more tariffs on all kinds of our trading partners. What are you hearing from folks?
Well, certainly the uncertainty of what is going to happen has got a lot of people worried about what January 22nd is going to look like, because January 21 will be that day when things do happen, if they do. Certainly looking at the dairy industry here in the state, pretty close to 70% of all the milk that's produced in the state right now is done with immigrant labor. So what happens if that mass deportation happens? How are those families going to really be affected? And that's the immigrant families, but also the families that own those operations that might have employees that don't show up for work because they're going to be afraid to go. And, how are they going to be able to replace those workers? That's probably the biggest concern. But, certainly looking at the tariff issues, we're still suffering from that yet today because from his first presidency, because we're not seeing those markets that have been lost overseas. Other countries and other organizations have filled in for us. So we don't have that ability to get back into them right away. And now with another threat, certainly is going to mean more loss of customers across the ponds.
What markets were lost in the first administration? And if this happens further, I'll say if, do you foresee other markets that will possibly be lost as well? So it's even a widening chasm of the things you can't provide to the world?
Yeah, so, certainly looking at China as a bigger market, they're number 3 in agricultural production, or they buy, they're number 3 buyer of agricultural production in this country. Mexico's number 1, Canada's number 2, China's number 3. And so looking at that market that we lost, and most of that is coming out of South America now going to China. But the 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada right now. And we're seeing what's happening in Canada with Prime Minister Trudeau stepping down now because of pressure there. But, those markets are not going to come back overnight because it's like anything. If you have, go and buy a car and you don't like the car, you don't necessarily go back to that same dealership to
absolutely
the next time. So, how can we mend those wounds? It's not something that happens overnight. So this is going to affect us for maybe up to the next decade.
And you said the top 3 were China, Mexico, and Canada, and those are the ones he has been mentioning more than anyone else. And I don't want to say, I'm not going to give him the strategic award of saying I want to go after the countries that affect our farmers the most, but that's what's going to happen now, is that the top 3 buyers are the top 3 he wants to tariff more, and it just seems like you are all going to be left in the wake.
Yeah, because agriculture has always been the first one that retaliation happens against, because we're the easiest target, and so that's just going to continue that process. And it's been so frustrating talking to not only our own members but other farmers across the state and the country on what happens if, and nobody can really answer that question because we don't know what that if looks like at this point in time. And the grave concern is if it does happen, what does things look like come February, March, April, after the effects of all that happens? Because certainly looking at pretty much all of agriculture and many other industries, immigrant labor has become a bigger part of that, all the way from roofing companies to hotel workers to processing factories, whether it's for meat and poultry or milk, or even you're looking at your equipment dealers.
If you're just joining us, Darin Von Rudin is our guest. He's the president of the Wisconsin Farmers Union, and just talking about the incoming administration has promised massive tariffs against some of our trading partners, has also promised mass deportations on day one. Darin, it's not like using immigrant labor, farmers using immigrant labor is a new thing within the last 10 years. This has been going on for years and years and years.
Yeah, it really started back in the 70s and 80s when farms started getting bigger and bigger. That's when the immigrant labor became a bigger part of it. But then as Americans don't want to do those dirty jobs that agriculture has quite a few of them in, we've become more and more dependent on immigrant labor to fill that workforce. And so if we want to get rid of the immigrants, then, Americans need to realize that we need to do that dirty work that nobody else wants to do.
And I know this is a heavy duty speculation, but I'm positive you haven't been asked this. You have been asked this before. Let's just say on day one, within the first month of Trump's first month in office, they get rid of them. Let's say magically just pull them all away. They're all sent back to the countries from where they came from. What does that do to you?
Yes, certainly on our farm, we do all the work ourselves, and
Yeah.
so we're not going to be directly impacted by it on our farm. But our neighbors that are 3-4 miles away that have 2,500 cows and have 15 or to 20 immigrant laborers there, there just isn't the workforce in the area to fill, even if half of them left. The workforce just isn't there. So how does that operation stay in business? How do those cows get fed? How do they get milked? How do you get the cleaning done? It's going to mean that fewer people are going to have to do a lot more work. And you can only do that for a certain amount of time. So, a month down the road, if that is the case, are the American people going to stand up and help with that process of making sure that their food is produced?
And what is that going to do to prices? Donald Trump promised to lower the price of eggs. He was going to lower the price of groceries. Oops. And then he said, well, once prices are up, it's kind of hard to get them back down. We're going to continue our conversation with Darin Von Rudin. And from Chippewa Falls, I see you on the line. We'll take you when we get back. Stay with us. You were listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. Good morning. Welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and the Calvinator on the board, coming to you from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. You can join us, call or text at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on a live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. The president of the Wisconsin Farmers Union, Darin Von Rudin, is here, and you're going to be making a monthly appearance with us on Matenaer On Air. Very excited about that, Darin. Before we went to the break, we were talking about Donald Trump's promise of mass deportations on day one and also increased tariffs against China and Mexico and Canada, our biggest trading partners. And we were going to get to prices and what that's going to mean for prices in the grocery store should all that happen. I did want to take Ann from Chippewa Falls, though, who's been waiting very patiently. Good morning, Ann. Thank you for joining us. What did you want to say?
Good morning. I just want to thank Darin for coming on. I'm a big fan of small farmers, organic farmers. We actually buy meat from an organic farmer. But I don't think the farmers are on the same page. Our organic farmer said, it's costing him a lot of money. And the farmer next door to him said, oh, don't worry. You'll get a check from the government. And this is what's going on. And most of the Wisconsin farmers voted for Trump, and they knew all these things. So I'm confused about that. So if Darin can clear that up and make me happier about the farmers, that would be great.
No pressure, Darin. Thank you, Ann. Appreciate the call, and thank you for listening. Yes, explain everyone to us, Darin, please, in 2 minutes or less.
By the way, also, my muffler needs to be fixed. Can you take care of that too, Darin? Thank you.
Yeah, well, thanks for the question, Ann. And I'm as confused as you are too, Ann. It just seems like there isn't that connection between what's going on in reality and what's happening on farms. We've got our members really want to see our income coming from the marketplace, and you're certainly helping with that, buying organic products and trying to keep as local as you possibly can. That certainly helps, but then in the reality is you just wonder how the checks from 2018 and 2019 that went out to farmers because of the trade wars that we had. Talked to a farmer up in the Chippewa Falls area here back before the election. Somehow he forgot about a $400,000 check from the government for the what he needed to recover from his market losses that came. And I just question how you lose track of $400,000 and but that's the mentality that we're at now. It's either get big or get out, and too many farmers are stuck in that spot that they want to stay in business, so they expand and continue that process, and and then just really lose touch with what reality looks like, and making sure that we have that diverse system that we've been talking about at Wisconsin Farmers Union.
And to back up a little bit, Darin, for people who don't realize, when Donald Trump instituted those tariffs during his first administration, our farmers took a huge hit, and they took such a big hit that Donald Trump had to help subsidize farmers, correct?
Yep. And that's part of the Farm Bill process that we're still kind of in the middle of. It was supposed to be replaced here a little over a year and a half ago now. Now we got another extension to the end of September this year. And, that really needs to be reformed too. We continue to give single individuals, $4, $5, $6, even $750,000 is supposed to be the limit. But they've figured out that loophole too, to just divide the farm up amongst more family members and get larger amounts from the federal government. And we don't feel that that's right. We want to see our income coming from the marketplace, and this mechanism isn't working. And originally it was set up to protect farmers. Now it's actually putting millions of dollars into single individuals' hands.
There's always a way to game the system, man. It just seems like if you can figure it out, there's a way to game the system. In the time we have left, Darin, I do want to talk about prices. Donald Trump, of course, used that as a big talking point on the campaign trail. He was going to bring down grocery prices as soon as he gets into office. And then when he got elected and he was asked about it, he said, well, once grocery prices are high, they're really hard to bring back down. If he goes through with these tariffs and these mass deportations, what's going to happen to the price of eggs and milk and butter?
Yeah, certainly looking at the mass deportation is probably going to affect it more because the processing industry and even the production facilities at the farm level, you lose all those employees that we could possibly lose. You're going to see mass interruptions within the processing industry and all the way up to the food stores. And that always spells higher prices. Just look at what happened during the pandemic and how,
yes,
facilities were shut down, couldn't get meat processed. Farmers ended up euthanizing animals because they just didn't have any place to take them to get processed. And so if that happens again with the mass deportation, we're going to see spring of 2021 and the spring of 2025.
I know it's just it's terrifying. It is, and it's got to be. Business hates unknowns, and I'm sure farmers hate unknowns even more than more traditional businesses do.
Yeah, we deal with the uncertainty of the weather on a daily basis. So, we kind of know what's going to happen tomorrow, but you don't always know what's going to happen. So, this is just adding a second layer of uncertainty to our businesses and really looking at, the next generation. Why would any farmer want to encourage that next generation to come into agriculture with all the uncertainty that we have today?
I was going to say, honestly, you deal with the weather, but honestly, the weather seems more predictable than the government right now for you as a farmer, though.
Yeah, it does. And certainly with the farm bill in such a flux and not having any certainty where that's going to be at 9 months again, how do you plan? That's one thing nice about the organic industry. We do have a few things in place that allow farmers to really budget for the next year so that we know what we're going to do if we can hit our production goals. That price is there and the consumer's willing to pay that price for that product. So, there's little certainty there, but certainly on the conventional side and general agriculture, there's a lot of uncertainty right now because that farm bill is still up in the air.
I'm sure you have another real cozy meeting set up with Darin Von Rudin where he's going to just welcome you into his office so you can sit down and share your concerns. Darin Von Rudin has been our guest, the president of the
Darin Von Rudin.
Darin Von Rudin. Jeez, I'm sorry. Darin Von Rudin, the president of the Wisconsin Farmers Union president. Maybe if you were relatives, he would sit down and have a meeting with you. Thank you so much, Darin. We'll see you next month. We have news coming up next. Stay close. You are listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
To be just like them, they say sing while you slave, and I just get bored. I ain't gonna work on Maggie's farm no more.
a part of everything I do. You're on my heart just like a tattoo.
Good morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Dr. Slide on the board, coming to you from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. Join us, call or text at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Don't forget, if you would like to help support Civic Media and you're looking for some, I don't know, new hat, maybe a new t-shirt, go to our website, civicmedia.us. Click on the shop button,
Yes.
upper right-hand corner, and pick up a t-shirt, maybe pick up a baseball cap. Take a look. Support Civic Media.
I really think we should have a t-shirt that has all three of our faces that are like drawn cartoon-like and just says Matenaer On Air underneath with little clouds on each side. I really want that to happen.
Okay, we'll get on that. We might have hats.
We may or may not have hats.
We
That
may
is-
or may not have hats.
That is up in the air.
There's
Matenaer On Air.
there's a rumor that on Monday we might have some special hats available.
No, that's not a rumor at that point.
Shh.
I'm sorry.
It's a rumor. It's a
I'm
rumor.
sorry.
There's a rumor.
I'm so sorry.
So join us on Monday to find out if we actually have some Matenaer On Air related merch coming your way. I'm very curious how you guys feel about this. 855-752-4842. Headline reads, 9-year-old girl gets permanent tattoo of American flag. How young is too young to get a tattoo? 9-year-old girl brought to Arizona by her parents because Arizona apparently has very loose regulations regarding tattoo artists.
Shocking.
They don't have to be licensed. That's a whole nother discussion.
Wisconsin almost went through the same thing when it came to barbers. They wanted to severely gut the regulations on the safety and sanitation requirements for barbers to learn and to adhere to.
And you are a barber.
I am a barber. I am a licensed, trained, licensed barber, and Wisconsin has some of the strictest in when it comes to safety and sanitation. And they wanted to get rid of that because they said it hampered the ability for people to start their own businesses, when really it was a major corporation who said, hey, change the law so we can skirt your little regulations and do things our way. People get sick. There are outbreaks. There are stories, and I'm not going to get into them right now, but being licensed, especially in something like tattooing, if you're not licensed, I'm not even going into that. That is disgusting to me.
Yeah, that would be the last place. And I'm not a tattoo fan. I will never get a tattoo. That's just not my thing. You have numerous tattoos. Lots of people have tattoos.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine going into some place that is not licensed, where they're going to take a needle and punch into your skin. They might not even clean those needles. You don't know.
Well, and that's the thing is when you nowadays when you go to get a tattoo, I've been getting tattoos now for, oh my God.
How old were you when you got your first one?
It was August of 1997. No, 6, 5.
And how
Six.
old were you?
I was 18.
You were 18.
I was 18, and at the time, I'm old. Tattooing was still illegal in Milwaukee.
Really?
It wasn't be for another like a year or so they would finally legalize tattooing in Milwaukee. We had to go all the way, and I lived in Waukesha, so it wasn't a big deal. I had to go all the way to McGuanago to get my tattoo because it was legal there. But I remember even before that, they're like watching programs where they talk about tattooing. Make sure you're walking into a clean environment.
Yes.
You're walking into an environment where the tattoo artist will show you what they're doing, give you a complete rundown of what they're doing, show you their tools. And I know from then to now, things have very much changed as far as the equipment. Like before, they would use what's called an autoclave. They would put certain non-disposable instruments in this machine that would essentially sanitize the instruments, so they could be reused. They were medically sanitized,
right?
So they could be reused,
right?
Now, with the exception of the gun that they have in their hand, which is now looks actually like a cucumber because they're wireless, they're Bluetooth. everything is packaged and disposable. You know, like if they're going to
So
use
it's
a needle,
one needle and then it's gone.
it's gone. So it's so safe and so reliable if you're going to the right place. And in Wisconsin, as far as I know, you have to be licensed to open up a shop.
How young is too young to get a tattoo? 855-752-4842. Talking about the story out of Arizona. Instagram video posted by a tattoo artist shows a 9-year-old getting a tattoo of an American flag. She came in with her parents. The artist explained the girl originally wanted a tattoo of Donald Trump on her neck. She's 9. He convinced her to do what he called a more patriotic tattoo, convinced her to get an American flag tattoo on her arm. She came back for a touch-up on her American flag. She did change her mind about wanting Donald Trump tattooed on her neck, but this has sparked a big debate online about people who are criticizing the tattoo shop for doing this. She came in with her parents.
Yeah.
They gave permission.
And the tattoo artist has every right to say no.
Sure.
There are tattooed artists who will say, I won't tattoo genitalia areas. I won't tattoo feet. I won't tattoo this. I won't tattoo that, because their own reasons. And that's it. If you walk in and you're a tattoo artist, Jane, and I say, tattoo my neck, and you say, I don't do necks, I can't force you to do it.
Go find somebody else.
Go find somebody else who says yes. This guy said yes because the parents said we give permission. I think it's too young and wallopingly too stupid. This is a stupid tattoo.
Ben Shaw with the Alliance of Professional Tattooists said Arizona is one of the least regulated states for tattoo artists. No license is required. He says it's one of the most frustrating things about our career field in Arizona with no regulations. He also said just because something is legal doesn't mean it's ethical. It gives us professionals a bad reputation. If you see a 10-year-old with a professional tattoo and they say they got it at a tattoo shop, this degrades us as a whole. How young is too young to get a tattoo? 855-752-4842. Mark from Prairie du Sac is on the line. Good morning, Mark. What do you think about this?
She's about half the age that she should be for it to be legal to get a tattoo, because a tattoo is at least semi-permanent. I mean, and the parents should have their head examined for getting this. I couldn't help remembering the line that from the old National Lampoon, it's a different context, but infectious hepatitis was all that came to stay. I mean, that because, as you pointed out, the whole thing for licensing, I've had this discussion frequently with barbers that, because I'd never get a tattoo, but that you have to be licensed to get that kind of thing. Because like barbers, I mean, and hairdressers, they're handling dangerous equipment that is, and dangerous chemicals that are applied to people's bodies, for God's sake.
Yeah.
I mean, it is just asinine that they're pushing through this deregulation of this kind of industry. And for a 9-year-old wanting to get a tattoo of Donald Trump on her neck, she got that from her parents. A 9-year-old doesn't dream this stuff up on her own. I mean, she hears that in the house, how great and worshipful Donald Trump is. And, and biblically, at least, that's at least in the Old Testament, you're not supposed to be getting tattoos anyway.
Oh, Mark, they don't count that one. They don't count the tattoo one or the eating pork one or the whole shrimp thing. The only thing they care about from Leviticus is the stuff they get to cherry pick. But I understand where you're going with that. Thank you. I agree with you. I think it's... Do parents never say no to their kids anymore?
Some don't.
It's like, you're 9, I want a tattoo of Trump on my neck. Okay, honey, let's go. Are you kidding?
I guarantee you they didn't say, that's okay, honey. They said, that's pretty cool, man.
You're my progeny. I'm so proud of you.
I mean, you're not, actually, it's a perfect example is a long time ago when I had my first tattoo, which is on my right arm. I only had one at the time. It was sticking out a little from my sleeve, and I was dating a young lady who was a born-again Christian, as her parents were. Her mother saw the little bit of tattoo on my arm, and she got up. I didn't know what was going on. She shot up. She walked in the bedroom. She pulled out a Bible.
Oh, my God.
Put it in front of me and pointed out to the Old Testament passage that Mark was talking about. And I said, well, what about your husband? He has a topless mermaid tattooed on his arm. And she looked at me, and I kid you not, Jane, she goes, he is saved.
Oh, so it's special dispensation.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Oh, okay. So that explains a lot.
But going back to what we're saying is, like, honestly, like, I don't want to say excuse the tattoo artist. Obviously, they're not the most ethical person in the world if they're going to tattoo a 9-year-old.
But at least he talked her out of the neck tattoo.
But they could honestly say no, too. That's
right.
But
she's just going to go someplace else.
Well, and also, who knows? In 2 years, she might just get it removed as well because whatever. I mean, tattoos are not permanent anymore. But I will say this. Tattoo removal from people I've talked to who've gotten it has said it's 10 times more painful than the tattoo itself.
And very expensive.
Yeah. And I have about 17 tattoos on my body. I don't regret any of them. Some of them are like, they're fine.
Yeah.
They're
my fave.
They're of a day and age, but definitely never if I would have gotten a tattoo at 10, I'd have a tattoo on my arm right now that said 5-star general of the metal militia. First of all, militias have no generals. Second of all, I'm glad I did not get that tattoo at 10 years old. And I'm glad my parents would never have entertained the idea, as my father hated tattoos.
Dave from New Berlin texting in, that flag is going to look awful as the kid grows up. Probably a MAGA mom approved of it. I think 18 should be the cutoff.
Yeah.
Someone listening in Green Bay on WGBW, as someone who has several tattoos, I think you should be at least 18. Tom from Jackson says 21. Todd from De Pere, wonder what would have happened if that 9-year-old girl told her parents she wanted to identify as he, him. That would have been honored too, huh? Yeah, I probably know.
What if she wanted to just get like a comma and a la because she loves Kamala?
Yeah,
they would have thrown her tuchus out of the house.
Angie from Monroe is on the line. Good morning, Angie. Thank you for joining us. How young is too young to get a tattoo?
Well, that is definitely too young. I just want to make a statement that Wisconsin, and if you have your parents with you, you can serve a minor alcohol, no matter how young they are.
Yes.
I will say that just to stab that alcohol thing in the gut. And then my other half is actually a tattoo artist, so I'm all for tattoos, obviously.
Sure.
I'm not against it, but that is so far wrong. And I wonder if when she ends up, getting pregnant nice and young and she needs that abortion to save her life, if that's going to be allowed to.
Good point, Angie.
It's, those are all definitely, if you're getting I don't know who said it, but this is a reflection of your parents' politics. No 9-year-old wants to tattoo a
politician.
I have an Obama tattoo on my back. I was nearly 30 when I got that one.
Yeah, I would have gotten a tattoo at 9 of Bobby Sherman.
Yeah,
would have been my choice.
What's interesting though is that law in Wisconsin that says that minors can drink with their children or minors can drink with their parents.
With their parents.
That is enforceable on a case-by-case basis. We at the TAP do not allow it. Like,
so it's up to the business.
Correct. Yeah. It's not just
it's a blanket thing.
Yep. Exactly.
Appreciate the call, Angie. Thank you very much. How young is too young to get a tattoo? 9-year-old girl with her parents went to Arizona. They're from out of state, by the way. Went to Arizona apparently because they are so loosely regulated in Arizona. She asked to get a tattoo of Donald Trump on her neck. The tattoo artist convinced her to get an American flag instead. She came back a year later for a few touch-ups and said she doesn't regret getting the flag.
Sure.
Which I guess that's good. That's too young.
It's too young.
That's too young.
It's too young. I think 18 is the age. You don't need to be older. You don't be younger than that. You're an adult by ways of the law. That's when you get a tattoo. I waited. I did that. I didn't get my ears pierced until I was 18, and my mother appreciated it. So
right.
I just
say no sometimes, Mom and Dad. You can say no.
Well, honestly, like if they're allowing their child to get a tattoo, they were going to allow her to get a neck tattoo. First of all, let's not forget that
at 9,
this was not them talking her down. That was the tattoo artist. But what else goes on in that house?
Well, she's getting a motorcycle next week. You're listening to Matenaer On Air. We have This Shouldn't Be a Thing coming up next. It's the Baby Don't Drive My Car edition. Stay with us. You're listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
Nothing's broken. No need to worry about everything I've done. Live every second like it was my last one. Don't look back at a new direction. Don't look back. I love you once. Needed protection. No. You're still a part of everything I do. You're on my heart just like a tattoo. Can't waste time, so give it a moment. Nothing's broken. No need to worry about everything I've done.
Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and Dr. Slide on the board, coming to you from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. You can join us, call or text. It's the same number, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and the platform that Jabba the Musk continues to actively ruin. Coming up tomorrow, Brittany Merlot will be here for a little weather and wine at 11:20. The cold is going to continue. We might have a little more snow coming in.
I think that's going to be up north.
Up north, that's fine with me. Brittany will be here tomorrow at 11:20. Paul Noonan, the Acme Packing Company sports guru, will be here to talk all things sports and more.
Mm-hmm.
TBD. To
well,
be
he's not,
determined.
he won't be talking about more.
No, but yes, that's tomorrow. Friday, Jim Santel, our colleague here at Civic Media. He's host of Amicus, a law review, Saturdays across Civic Media. He's brilliant. He's an attorney, former
U.S. attorney.
U.S. attorney.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about some of I have a profanity I would use instead of shenanigans.
I was going to say shenanigans.
Yeah, but some shenanigans going on in North Carolina. They had a Supreme Court election, and the Supreme Court is going to, it looks like they were going to step in and overturn this.
They're going to overturn the will of the people.
Yeah. So Jim Santel will be joining us on Friday at 10:30. I hope you can join us for that. Right now, though, it is 11:53. Calvin, that means it's time for...
This shouldn't be a thing.
If you ever have a thing you think should not be, send it in to Greg and me at Jane Says, JaneSays, Jane Says at civicmedia.us. Use that same email, too, if you ever want to get in contact with us. We do check our emails every day. Can be a guest maybe you think would be wonderful for the show, an issue going on in your community, no matter where you are across the state.
Yeah.
Please let us know. Go to Jane Says, email Jane Says at civicmedia.us. Headline reads from TMJ4, driverless robo-taxis set to hit the roads in U.S. cities in 2025. Zoox, a subsidiary of Amazon, says the carriage-style vehicles can fit 4 people inside and will soon be available to the general public as a ride-hailing service.
Spell Zoox, Jane.
Zoox.
You think Elon's going to get mad about that?
Oh. Rich guy. Fight.
Yeah.
Robotaxis made by Zoox are slated to hit the streets of L.A., San Francisco, and Foster City, California later on this year. The blue shuttles can fit 4 people inside. They don't have a driver's seat, steering wheel, or pedals. Zoox co-founder Jesse Levinson says it's symmetrical, it's bi-directional, it's really designed for a wonderful customer experience and a social seating arrangement on the inside. You use it the way you'd use a ride-hailing app, except you don't have to deal with a driver, and you get a safe and consistent experience, provided it doesn't crash into anything.
Here at Zoox, have you ever wanted to drive in a 4-person casket with no driver? We are asking for it, Jane. We are asking for it. We are spitting in the face of God if you believe this. This is not right. I'm sorry. I am so deathly against driverless machines. We're asking for it.
They will continue to run safety tests.
Well, thank God.
Because last year, Zoox faced a federal investigation over rear-end crashes after some of their vehicles would brake suddenly. Developing autonomous vehicles and getting the tech to the point where it's safe enough to drive on public roads with no driver has taken Zoox and the industry many, many years. It's a challenging problem because the safety bar is so high. Yeah, it should be high.
They should really take this whole thing to Arizona. There's no rules there, no law.
Montana,
Idaho.
Either Dakota. Test him in Dakota.
I mean, my goodness. To live in Los Angeles must suck because you're always the pilot program. And this is terrible. There's going to be so many crashes.
Las Vegas resident Henry Suarez, he's excited to see robo-taxis on the Strip. I don't think there will be any problems or anything. Another resident says, this makes me really uneasy. I don't like things I don't have control over. Zoox says it expects to roll this out later this year. Rides will initially be free for people who agree to test it out. You go first. You go.
Why is this called the guinea pig clause? I don't know. No way, no how, no anything whatsoever. I would never get into a
driverless.
A driverless. No.
It's going to take a decade before I would get close to one of those things.
I don't even like when I get a check, I don't even like snap a picture of it to deposit it into my bank. You know that technology, you can do that? I won't even do that. I'm not getting into a car without a driver. That's how old school I'm going to stay on this one. I will never, ever, unless I'm unconscious and I have to. That's the only way I'll get into a driverless car.
And I guess my biggest sticking point about this is the name.
Zooks
should not be a thing. It just shouldn't.
It sounds like someone got high and watched Grease and goes, guess what we're calling it?
Zooks is a cartoon character.
Yeah.
Not a driver. Not exactly. Not a wagga wagga.
Do you think when he's driving, he's going bubba 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 bubba
bubba? Awooga. That wraps up today's episode of
This Shouldn't Be a Thing.
Thank you, Greg and Calvin, and all of our engineers. Without you guys, nothing works. And thank you most of all for calling and texting and listening. It absolutely means the world. I hope you find some joy today, even if it's just a little bit, and you have a chance to share it. News coming up next, followed by Todd Alba. Keep it right here on the Civic Media Radio Network. We will see you tomorrow.